Maya never thought she'd hear a child scream that would change her life forever. She was just the maid, scrubbing marble floors no one cared to walk on, invisible in a house so big she could go days without seeing its owners. But that morning, everything shifted in a single heartbeat. The mop slipped from her gloved hands as the scream tore through the empty hall. The smell hit her next, smoke, sharp and bitter, curling under the kitchen door. Maya's heart slammed against her ribs as she ripped off her apron and bolted down the hallway barefoot. She had no plan, no shield, just raw instinct and a single thought: Ethan. The billionaire's only son. The boy she'd read bedtime stories to when no one else bothered. She reached the grand staircase just in time to see him, tiny and terrified, clutching his teddy bear at the top of the stairs while black smoke coiled around him like a monster ready to swallow him whole. Flames roared somewhere behind the closed study doors. The alarm was silent. The security guards were nowhere. Maya's lungs burned as she called his name. His wide blue eyes locked onto hers, trusting her more than anyone else in that marble prison. She ran up the stairs, heat licking her bare ankles. She didn't care. She only knew she had to get him out. What she didn't know was that this fire was no accident. And when Ethan finally spoke the two words that would freeze her heart, Maya's whole world would ignite in a way no flame ever could. Keep watching till the end to uncover the truth behind Ethan's whisper, and if you believe real heroes deserve the world to know their name, hit that like button right now and subscribe so you never miss these untold stories. That Maya's bare feet slammed the hot wooden steps as she charged upward, each one searing her skin through cheap, worn soles that were never meant to face flames. She didn't flinch. Ethan's cough sliced through the smoke like a blade through silk, guiding her straight to him. She reached the landing, grabbed him before he could even cry out, his tiny arms locking around her neck, the stuffed bear dropping to the floor and rolling into the creeping fire. She spun around, clutching him so tight he could barely breathe, but his face pressed into her shoulder like she was the only safe place left in the world. The hallway behind them hissed and roared as the fire licked up velvet drapes, gobbling the expensive paintings, turning millions into ash. Maya didn't care if the whole mansion burned. She only cared that this boy didn't. She limped toward the nearest window, the front stairs already gone behind a wall of flames. She coughed, eyes burning, legs trembling under Ethan's weight. The window wouldn't budge. She kicked, once, twice, until her toes split open and the glass cracked like thin ice under her heel. She grabbed a heavy vase, smashed it through, shards raining over her hair. One glance back, smoke was a solid wall now. "Hold on to me, baby," she whispered, her voice raw. Ethan's whimper was barely there. She climbed onto the ledge, his heartbeat pounding into her chest. Then she jumped. The wind roared in her ears, the earth came too fast, the landing slammed into her bones like a hammer, but Ethan didn't hit the ground alone, he hit her. She curled around him, shielding him as they rolled onto the lawn, coughing, choking, alive. People screamed. Sirens howled in the distance. But only two words would matter. Ethan would say them soon, and they'd shatter her. Keep watching to hear what he whispered, and smash that like button right now if you believe every child deserves a hero like Maya. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that expose the truth behind closed doors. The grass was cold under Maya's back, a shocking bite against the heat still searing her skin. She didn't notice the pain blooming in her ankle or the cuts from the glass buried in her shoulder. All she felt was Ethan's tiny body pressed tight against hers, his small chest heaving with every ragged breath. She forced herself up onto one elbow, fighting the dizziness, her other arm wrapped so tight around the boy it felt like they were one heartbeat. Around them, the mansion groaned and cracked as flames devoured the life inside. Glass popped, wood split, and the thick column of black smoke climbed high enough for the neighbors to finally run screaming into the street. Maya didn't hear them. Her whole world narrowed to the boy in her arms. His big blue eyes blinked open, tears cutting clean rivers down soot-smeared cheeks. He stared at the teddy bear clutched in his small fists. Somewhere in the tumble, he'd grabbed it again. The same bear he'd carried since she first tucked him in at night when no one else did. She stroked his hair, whispering, "It's okay, baby. You're safe now. I've got you." His lips trembled. He looked at the burning house, his home, his prison, his inheritance, and then back at her. And then he whispered them. Two small words that cracked the air worse than any fire. They knew. Maya's whole body locked. The roar of the flames faded behind the pounding of her heart in her ears. She pulled him closer, desperate to understand. Who knew, Ethan? Who? But the boy only clung tighter, his tiny hands fisting in her shirt. The sirens were screaming closer now, neighbors yelling, phones recording. But for Maya, nothing would ever be the same. What did Ethan mean? Who had left him there to burn? Stay with this story till the end to find out the truth, and if you want Maya's bravery to be honored, hit like right now and subscribe so her sacrifice never gets buried. Maya's pulse thundered in her ears louder than the fire trucks pulling up to the curb. She held Ethan so close his tiny heartbeat fluttered against her chest like a trapped bird. The neighbors gathered, gasping, pointing at the blaze that once was a billionaire's mansion, now just timber and ash waiting to collapse. But Maya didn't see them. All she saw was Ethan's face, tear-streaked, smudged black with soot, his lips forming those two words again when she asked him. They knew. She brushed ash from his cheek, her fingers trembling. Who, baby? Who knew? But Ethan only stared at the flames, eyes wide with a horror far too old for a boy of 5. Medics rushed toward them then, pulling her back gently, prying Ethan from her arms to check him for burns. Maya's arms felt empty, her skin raw where he'd clung to her like she was the last safe thing in his world. The paramedic pressed an oxygen mask to Ethan's face. He didn't fight it, just held his teddy bear so tight it looked like it might burst at the seams. Maya tried to stand but pain sliced up her leg. Her ankle throbbed, swelling in her shoe. She winced but refused the stretcher the firefighters offered her. She had to stay close to Ethan. She hobbled behind them as they carried him to the ambulance, her eyes darting to the front of the mansion, and that's when she froze. The red convertible. Parked neat and shiny in the driveway. No flames had touched it. No ash, no scorch marks. She remembered the front door had been locked. She remembered the smoke alarms that never went off. Too many pieces suddenly fitting together. Someone wanted that fire. And someone wanted Ethan gone. But why? Who? Maya's mind raced even as she stumbled forward. She knew one thing for sure, she would find out. If you're with her, show your support, hit that like button and subscribe now. Heroes like Maya shouldn't stand alone. Hours later, the flames were gone but the questions burned hotter than ever. Maya sat on the cold metal bench outside the ER, her ankle wrapped in a stiff white bandage, her hair smelling of smoke and ash. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard Ethan's cough, felt his tiny arms locked around her neck, heard those two small words, they knew. She stared through the glass doors where nurses moved like ghosts, tending to Ethan as he lay curled under thin white sheets, his teddy bear tucked close to his chest like a shield against the world. He hadn't spoken again since the ambulance ride. He hadn't asked for his mother. He hadn't asked for his father. He'd asked only for her. Maya. Just the maid. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, her palm raw and blistered from the glass. A detective approached, notepad in hand, voice calm but sharp at the edges. Ms. Maya, can you walk me through what happened? She told him everything, the scream, the flames, the locked front door, the broken window. She left nothing out, not even Ethan's whisper. The detective scribbled fast, his brow creasing deeper with every word. You're saying the alarms were disabled? She nodded. The front door was locked from the outside. And the garage? Her car was untouched. The detective's eyes darkened. And the boy's mother? Maya swallowed hard. She left that morning. Said she was going shopping. Never came back. The detective closed his notebook slowly. You did a brave thing today, Ms. Maya. She looked past him at Ethan, his small chest rising and falling steady now, thanks to her. I just did what anyone would do. But deep down she knew that wasn't true. She was just the maid, no one expected her to run into the flames. But she did. And she'd do it again. She had to. Because now there was a secret smoldering in those ashes, and she would uncover it, no matter the cost. Stay with this story and hit like if you believe Maya's courage deserves the world's respect. Don't forget to subscribe so the truth never gets buried. Maya sat beside Ethan's hospital bed long after the detective left, her hand resting near his on the blanket, careful not to wake him. The monitors beeped steady, the smell of antiseptic sharp and cold after the scorched air she'd breathed just hours ago. Every so often, Ethan's fingers twitched, gripping his teddy bear tighter, his lips moving in a restless dream. They knew. The words wouldn't leave her head. Maya replayed every moment from that morning, his mother's distant voice, the careless way she'd swept out the door, her designer heels clicking on the marble like an ending. The front door bolt scraping shut behind her. The silence that followed. The smoke that came too fast. None of it felt like an accident. Maya shifted, pain biting up her leg from the swollen ankle wrapped tight in stiff gauze. She ignored it. She had bigger wounds now, wounds that lived in her chest where fear made her breath catch. She thought about calling the boy's father. Mr. Cartwright. Billionaire. Busy. Always far away in Europe or Dubai, leaving his wife to manage the grand house and the little boy who only really knew Maya. Would he care? Would he even believe her? The detective had taken her word seriously, but she'd seen doubt flicker in his eyes when she'd said the fire wasn't just a freak accident. Arson, she'd whispered to herself when he walked away. The word felt too big for someone like her to say out loud. But she knew. She'd seen the locked door, the untouched car, the broken alarm. The way Ethan looked at her now, like she was the only person left who could keep the shadows away. She brushed a strand of hair off his forehead and promised herself one thing. No matter who had planned that fire, they would never get another chance. If you stand with Maya's fight for the truth, hit that like button and subscribe, because real courage deserves to be seen. By morning, the hospital room felt like a sanctuary no fire could touch, but Maya knew that was an illusion. The real danger was still out there, somewhere behind the polished smiles and silk curtains of a billionaire's life. Ethan woke up with a tiny gasp, eyes flicking wildly around the sterile room until they landed on her. He didn't say Mama. He didn't say Daddy. He just reached for her hand like she was the only safe truth he had left. Maya squeezed his fingers, forcing her own fear down so he wouldn't see it. "You're okay, baby. You're safe now," she whispered, though she didn't quite believe it herself. A soft knock made her flinch. A nurse peeked in, said the boy's father had arrived. Maya's chest tightened. Daniel Cartwright. She'd never met him in person. Just glimpsed his picture on magazine covers in the mail she threw away unopened. Billionaire tech genius. Family man in glossy interviews. Absent ghost in his own home. Now, he was here. The door swung wider. Maya held her breath as the man stepped in, crisp suit, tie loose, eyes bloodshot. He didn't even glance at her at first, his gaze locked on Ethan like he was trying to remember how to breathe. Then he knelt beside the bed. "Hey, champ," he croaked, his voice cracked and raw. Ethan stared back, silent, still clutching Maya's hand like a lifeline. Daniel's eyes flicked to her finally, saw the soot stains that wouldn't wash off her arms, the gauze peeking from under her sleeve, the exhaustion carved into her face. And in that instant, the perfect image cracked. He saw what she'd done. She saved his son when no one else would. Maya braced herself for blame or dismissal, but instead, his voice broke when he whispered, "Thank you." Maya didn't answer. She just tightened her hold on Ethan's tiny hand. She knew this wasn't over. Someone wanted that boy gone. And she was going to find out who. If you believe Maya deserves the truth and the world's thanks, hit that like button and subscribe now. Heroes like her can't fight alone. Daniel Cartwright sat stiffly in the visitor chair, elbows on his knees, eyes locked on Ethan like he was trying to rewrite the past with sheer will. Maya watched him from her spot by the bed, her body aching but her mind sharper than ever. She didn't trust him, not yet. Not when his son had nearly burned alive while he closed deals oceans away. "He's safe now," Daniel murmured, his voice a whisper meant for the boy but echoing in Maya's chest like an accusation. Safe now, but where was he when the alarms failed? Where was he when the front door locked from the outside? She wanted to ask him if he knew. If he also knew. But Ethan stirred, breaking the heavy silence. His small hand squeezed Maya's fingers, then reached toward Daniel, who leaned in so fast it almost broke her heart. The boy's voice was hoarse but clear. "Daddy, the fire. Mummy, locked." The word stuck to his tongue like poison he was afraid to spit out. Daniel froze. His jaw clenched, eyes flicking to Maya as if to ask if he'd heard right. Maya didn't flinch. She spoke before fear could shut the truth down. "Your son told me 2 words, they knew. He said they knew he was inside." Daniel's face paled. For a second, Maya saw a father, not a billionaire, not a headline, just a man realizing his perfect life had teeth behind the gold. "Who?" he whispered, voice breaking. Ethan whimpered, burying his face in Maya's arm, the teddy bear squished between them. Maya didn't have answers yet, but she had questions burning like fresh flames. Who'd gain the most if Ethan didn't survive? Why was the mother gone before the blaze? Why was the alarm dead, the car untouched? And who was they? One thing was clear, someone wanted this child erased like a mistake. But not on her watch. If you're here to help Maya stand guard for Ethan, slam that like button now and subscribe so you never miss the truth that people with money want buried. The hospital's bland white walls couldn't hide the poison swirling in Daniel Cartwright's mind as he sat beside Ethan's bed, fingers pressed to his temples. Maya watched him, studying every flinch in his jaw, every crack in his perfect suit and tie armor. He looked like a man trying to hold a million secrets inside a chest too small to contain them. Ethan slept again, one small hand twisted in Maya's sleeve like he knew she wouldn't vanish like everyone else. Daniel's eyes flicked to her, raw, almost pleading. "Maya, do you think my wife could do this?" The word wife sat between them like a dagger. Maya wanted to scream yes. Wanted to tell him about the untouched car, the cold goodbye that morning, the locked door. But she kept her voice steady, her back straight even though her ankle throbbed under her weight. I think, she said quietly, someone knew exactly when you'd be gone, when the staff would be off, when the alarms could fail. Daniel swallowed hard, his eyes wet, but rage sparked behind the tears. If she did this, his voice died. He looked at Ethan, his only child, his heir, his responsibility that he'd trusted to someone who saw him as nothing more than a trust fund wrapped in tiny pajamas. Maya leaned forward, lowering her voice so the nurse passing in the hall wouldn't hear. Mr. Cartwright, whoever planned this knew you wouldn't be here. They knew the boy trusted me. They knew if he cried, no one would hear him but me. Daniel looked up at her, and for the first time, Maya saw fear in the eyes of a billionaire. Not fear of losing money or headlines. Fear of losing what little family he had left. Will you help me? He whispered. Maya didn't hesitate. I'll protect him. But you have to promise you'll protect him too. Really protect him this time. Daniel nodded, breath shaking. Outside the door, voices gathered, cameras, lawyers, rumors hungry to feast on tragedy. Maya would stand in that fire too, if she had to. If you're with her, show it, like this video and subscribe now. No more children left alone in the flames. By the next morning, the hospital hallway felt like a battlefield. Security guards, detectives, murmured threats from lawyers trying to smother gossip before it reached the tabloids. Maya stayed planted in the same hard chair beside Ethan's bed, refusing every polite suggestion to go home and rest. She couldn't. Not when the boy's soft breathing reminded her of that first cough through the smoke, of tiny hands gripping her as she jumped through shards of glass. Daniel moved in and out of the room, phone pressed to his ear, voice clipped and raw as he made calls to lawyers, fire marshals, even private investigators. Once, Maya heard him hiss through his teeth, if she did this, I want proof. She. His wife. The woman who locked her son behind a door and vanished into a sunny day like nothing burned behind her. Ethan stirred in his sleep, mumbling for his bear. Maya tucked it back under his arm, brushing a strand of hair off his forehead. She wasn't his mother, she wasn't even family, but she'd wrapped her body around him when the flames came, and that made her something. Something no one could take away now. A nurse slipped in with a tray of food Ethan wouldn't touch unless Maya coaxed him to. She fed him spoonful by spoonful while Daniel watched from the corner, phone lowered, eyes filled with a regret that wouldn't fix the past but maybe, just maybe, could protect the boy's future. When Ethan finished, he squeezed Maya's hand and whispered, "Don't go." She kissed his knuckles. "I'm not going anywhere." Outside the window, reporters hovered like vultures waiting for a scandal. But Maya didn't care about headlines. She cared about one thing, finding out exactly who wanted this child erased. Because the fire was just the start. If you believe Maya deserves answers, and that Ethan deserves the safest life money can't buy, then hit like right now and subscribe. The real blaze is only beginning, and you won't want to miss what she uncovers next. 2 days later, the mansion was a skeleton of blackened beams and scorched marble floors, but the secrets buried in its ashes were starting to smolder to the surface. Maya found herself standing outside the crime scene tape, the smell of burnt wood and soaked carpet hitting her like a ghost. She shouldn't have come back, her ankle ached with every step, her lungs still tasted smoke, but she had to see it. Had to feel it under her skin, remind herself of the hallway where she'd run barefoot into the flames for a boy who wasn't even hers. A detective met her near the charred gate. He pulled her aside, voice low. "We pulled the backup security footage from the cloud, Ms. Maya. There's something you need to see." He handed her a small tablet. On it, the screen flickered with security cam clips, footage the arsonist thought they'd erased. Maya's heart slammed against her ribs as she watched. Mrs. Cartwright. Perfect hair, perfect coat, perfect lie. Smiling at Ethan before gently shutting the front door. Turning the lock with a slow, deliberate twist. Looking over her shoulder once, right into the camera she didn't know was mirrored behind the entry light. Maya's knees nearly buckled. The detective steadied her arm. "We also found traces of accelerant in the study. And the smoke alarms? Wires were clipped behind the panel. This wasn't an accident. This was planned." Rage and relief tangled in Maya's throat. The little boy's whisper, "They knew," echoed in her mind. He'd seen it all. He'd known. And if she hadn't been there that day mopping marble floors nobody noticed, he'd be a memory now. She looked at the ruin of the house and saw more than ashes. She saw a promise. Ethan would never go back to that cold palace. Not if she had to drag the truth into every courtroom herself. If you're with Maya in this fight for justice, show it. Smash that like button and subscribe. Heroes like her stand tall because we stand with them. The courtroom smelled like old wood polish and expensive perfume, but Maya barely noticed. She sat straight on the witness stand, her ankle wrapped under her modest skirt, her hands folded to stop their shaking. Across the room sat Daniel Cartwright, eyes locked on Ethan where he dozed on a padded bench, teddy bear wedged under one small arm. And beside Daniel sat the woman Maya once mopped floors for, perfect hair now limp, designer suit creased by restless fingers. Mrs. Cartwright didn't look at Maya. She looked everywhere else, as if the ceiling or the bailiff or the polished floor could explain away her locked door and clipped alarms. The prosecutor spoke clearly, every word like a hammer pounding on marble. Ms. Maya, can you tell the court what you heard Ethan say? Maya's voice didn't waver this time. He said they knew. He said they knew I was inside. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Mrs. Cartwright's lawyer objected but the judge silenced him with a glance. The footage from the hidden camera had done most of the talking already. A single moment, her turning the key, looking over her shoulder, walking away while her child sat upstairs waiting for bedtime stories that would never come. Daniel lowered his head into his hands. For once, the billionaire looked like just a father, broken, furious, guilty he hadn't been there. When the judge ruled, Maya didn't hear every word, just enough. Attempted murder. Arson. Child endangerment. No bail. No loophole. No mercy. When it was done, Maya stood and crossed the room to where Ethan sat wide-eyed, confusion flickering in his small face. She knelt, ignoring the cameras flashing like lightning. He leaned into her arms and whispered, "Home now." She hugged him tight. "Yes, baby. Home. Safe. Forever." Outside, reporters shouted questions Maya ignored. She didn't care about headlines, she cared about the boy who now clung to her hand like a promise. Daniel caught her shoulder as they stepped into the sunlight. "Whatever you need," he said, voice hoarse. "Your family now." Maya looked at Ethan, at the world waiting for its next scandal, and smiled. She'd faced fire and secrets and lies, and she'd won. And if you believe true courage wins in the end, hit that like button and subscribe right now. Because Maya's story proves no one is just anything when love is real.